and how they felt really open and, you know, don't know what their area of focus is yet. So I thought I'd comment on my process because when I started the program, it was very much wanting to do more meaningful work, but I had no idea what that work looked like. And it wasn't until Pilgrim Furs that I really came in touch with that I wanted to do work with youth, and in particular, you know, youth that are at risk. And even up until the point where I started thinking about what my theory paper would be and what my area of focus was, I really couldn't picture what the vocation looked like. And so it was really, really hard for me to kind of figure out what direction to go. I was very interested in personal mastery and was part of the personal mastery design team. And I still remember very vividly my degree committee, which is your mentoring councils. I was saying, well, I'm just going to work on myself, and that will make me a good instrument of change. And my committee really helped me focus my attention on youth and the needs that are there. And during that process, we came up with looking at the intersection of transformational learning and the needs of at-risk youth. And I explored it through personal mastery and the things that we did in the program, but then you know, looked at where those two things intersected. And my intention during that process was to discover what my vocation might look like by looking at what's being done, what the needs are, and, you know, how the theory that we're learning here can be applied there. And even coming out of that process, I came up with this creative mentoring and understanding how creative interventions are really helpful in that space, but still could not figure out what my work looked like. And it wasn't until we started doing the consulting projects and then looking forward to what my OSR project was and realizing that it was really meant to be a stepping stone to that future work, that it became clear to me that actually doing hands-on work with troubled teens was what was going to help get me to that next space. So my project ended up taking the theories that I explored during the summer and working with kids at the detention center at Echo Glen and really doing all the things that I discovered in my paper that seemed to work according to the people who wrote the works that I had read, but that I didn't fully trust until I stepped down into that space and saw that actually all those things that I had read about over the summer were validated.
So I won't talk so much about like the whole process, but one thing for me is I want, the learning for me was about, at times I felt panic because it didn't seem like it was coming together. But if you take the time to, for reflection and slowing down and trust that it will come together, and even if maybe not all the pieces come together immediately, but even in the end, it just did. And just trusting the universe will bring you what you need. Because my project, I was looking, I couldn't find it, and it was just right in front of my face that I didn't even know it until the light went on. I'm like, whoa, that's it. So just trusting the process and taking time to reflect, and it's okay, you'll get there.
And I had a little bit of an similar experience in my theory paper in that, you know, I was pretty sure by that point I knew where I was going and what was important and what I wanted to come out. And as I was writing the theory paper, it seemed to be veering farther and farther and farther away. And I thought, I'm going to end up and then have to do some project that's totally different from what I think I want. And the fascinating thing was, through that process, I just thought, okay, I'm not going to change it at this point. I'm just going to keep going, trust the process. And sure enough, it went away, and then it kind of wound around and ended up right back at kind of that core of what was really important to me. So I was fascinated by that process, but about halfway through I got very panicked that I thought, uh-oh, I have to totally change everything.
In what you said, Jenny, and what you said, Lee, what came to me was this idea of during the summer you work the theory paper, but it also works you. There's this really interesting relationship you have with this thing that is, in a sense, your own creation, but it has a presence and a life of its own. So how that showed up for me was, I thought coming into OSR, I was kind of turning sort of a page from first chapter, which was being an architect, to the next chapter, which was being something else. And it was in the course of the theory paper over the summer, because my interest was in some of the transformational social technologies, Otto Scharmer for example. And that ended up sort of interacting with sort of properties of physical space. And I think for me, through the experience of working on and being worked by, I kind of reconnected with some stuff I thought I'd kind of left behind. And really found myself sort of living out one of these Ken Wilber kind of transcend and include, processes. So it's not one of these journeys where you figure out you're going to Miami.
By way of Shanghai or something.
But I think that the important part for me was the recognition that one always remains in dialogue with something, and it's the conversation that matters, I think. And the destination is where the conversation takes you.
Just one thing to add on to that, and it's short. It's just when I looked at the, you write this poster that has this statement, this vocation that you think it is now, and when we end, we have to do it again. And I was just like, I couldn't recognize. I mean, the vocation I had come up was completely alien to me. Like, who wrote this? But it was my own vocation. I was like, wow, it was so specific and grounded in engineering-like. It was, and now it's much better. It's 55 characters, but it's amazing. And yet, coming back to what you loved initially was also part of it. So it's a really nice process to get back to a little bit of what you had when you came, but in a totally different perspective.
Yeah, I had a question. So when you're getting to this decision type thing around theory or area of focus, because one of the things that's driving me crazy, I feel like I've been asked the same question like 25 times.
How many of us feel the same way last year at the same time?
Would it be the word instrument?
But, so, is it something you ended up figuring out on your own? I'm hearing there is consultation with mentoring councils. Like, how did you get the breakthrough?
We wear you down.
But I almost feel like I'm willing to come up with an answer to be an answer for somebody else. Because they keep asking and they're driving me friggin' nuts.
What are they asking you?
Well, it's just this constant, like, what's your area of engagement, or what's your vocation, or is your comment on this, or your learning commitment. I mean, I have 7 versions of a learning commitment. And I was told to pick. Like, narrow it down, and I said, well, you can narrow it down, because at this point, if I narrow it down, it's the same as you narrowing it down, because I don't have any clarity on it. So, just pick. Go ahead.
I have a story that might be helpful to you.
Please, lay it on me.
Okay.
Is it a happy ending?
Yes, I did my final degree committee yesterday. I actually, Bob's not here, so I'm thinking, do we have to turn in this learning contract? Because I never wrote one that worked. And so 2 weeks before my 4th degree committee meeting, I'm thinking, what have I accomplished? And I'm rewriting it. And it turns out we didn't need it. But it turns out that one of the way earlier renditions of it, you know more than you think. And one of the earlier renditions probably is pretty close. So just take a breath and don't write it again. You can backfill it. and the learning is there. I mean, part of it is thinking about it. So, I mean, my theory paper doesn't really connect to my project. I mean, it's all good.
But my question is back to how did you have the breakthrough? Like, what was it that prompted the breakthrough?
Deadlines. I'm serious.
But was it inquiry with others? Was it discussion? Was it like going to a friggin' psychic? Like, what was it? Give me, like, what were some tactics?
I'll answer that in some way. I had an opportunity to get some coaching, and being able to talk it through and with someone really asking me some very good, powerful questions was helpful, because it was bringing up what I knew, but I didn't have access to it yet. And one of the things I realized that, because I was having some very similar to what you're saying, was that the things that actually were real for me, I didn't count them as valid. So I kept looking for what is it that I'm gonna get that's out there that I haven't discovered yet, and I wasn't counting the things that actually were important to me as having value. I don't know if that's your situation, but for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, I do have all these dreams, all these things I want to do, but I was putting them over in this pile because